like journalists write, young Aussie millionaire. And I'm like, what the
Things have changed so much in the last 10 years, but you're still on top of your game. What can you share about organic socials?
I just think it's really important with organic content and personal branding. Decided to quit my full-time job and go, fuck it, I'm going to make this thing work. When I think back, you could just post a picture of a dress and people would buy it. Whereas now, to sell a dress, you've got to give people a million other reasons for them to want it. Just have to entertain your customer and then they'll buy the dress. I started Fate in the garage underneath my house. Got the first 90 square metre warehouse. And that's when I was like, oh, this is actually turning into a real business. April, did we do 1 or 2 million in the sale?
Who have you become through this journey?
Ooh. I think social media can make business look amazing, but it's actually fucked. Like, business is the hardest thing that you'll ever do. I would say I've become who she wanted me to be. I know it's cliche to say, but I feel like I knew that I was always destined for greatness. That's who I've become, someone that my younger self would absolutely be proud of, and I did it all on my own.
If you could boil down your childhood into a couple of key moments, what would that be? Welcome to Chew the Fat. My name is Frank Reef, and I started this podcast after I sold a business for $180 million with my 2 brothers. It's part of my mission to raise $1 million for Children's Cancer Institute by writing a cookbook called Eat with Purpose. In this series, I'm going to bring different types of founders on for you can share in their journeys and their lessons and insights. I'm also going to bring on guests who are in the middle of scaling their business. I want to make sure the challenges are relative to you and make sure you can take insights that you can use in each and every day in your business. I hope you enjoy. Brittney,
Yeah.
welcome.
Thanks.
So today I didn't tell you what I was going to cook because I stitched you up.
Yeah,
But-
this is unexpected, but I'm here for it.
So what we have, part of the Chew the Fat mission, is the raising awareness for the Eat with Purpose cookbook to raise $1 million for children's cancer. What I have for you today is like a little Moroccan chicken,
Nice.
and a guac, and some broccolini.
Delicious.
Let's go. So I always ask one question, which is like, what's your most vivid memory over food?
Oh, goodness. My most vivid memory over food would probably be just discovering my nan's potato bake and lasagna.
Love that.
Like, nothing tops it. No one can ever make it as good. And my partner, AJ, has tried like making her recipe of potato bake and it's just never the same.
Love that. No offense
That's
to
my
him.
favourite food memory.
Good. All right, we'll finish up here. We'll get stuck into the interview. Where I'd love to start for everybody is, if you could boil down your childhood into a couple of key moments, what would that be?
Oh. I mean, I think my childhood was fun. I remember my whole childhood. I say to my partner, you know, do you remember doing this when you were a kid? And he's like, nah. Like, he doesn't remember like last week. Whereas I remember my whole childhood. Key moments. I mean, my mum and dad split up when I was maybe like 8 or 9, and I don't have any happy memories of them being together. We never went on a holiday or anything like that. So it was just a lot of fighting and arguing and being sent to my room. Like, I do remember a lot of that, which I know is like a negative thing to say, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that I remember a lot from my childhood is I weirdly had a burning desire to want to be great. And so when I was little, I did dancing and like a Stedfords, and like I was on the debating team. Like, I always wanted to be, I don't know if it's like I always wanted to be on a stage, but I remember always loving that.
That's really interesting.
And I think that like makes a lot of sense, like looking at what I do now. It's like I feel like, I know it's cliche to say, but I feel like I knew that I was always destined for greatness, but I was too young to know what that was when I was that little.
That's really interesting. The frame of like always wanted to be great.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, when you say that, I kind of resonate with that.
Yeah.
And when I started kind of in the chefing world, I almost had like this delusional sense of like I'm up here. In my mind, I was like, I'm gonna do these really big things, but I'm like there scaling fish. So
Yeah.
so I feel you.
No, it's very much the same. And I remember, I don't know if you want me to just keep going on a tangent.
Of course.
Okay. I remember just taking you through my life now. So I dropped out of school because I just didn't have any interest in being there. And my first ever job was at Macca's when I was 14. Like I was so keen to just get that job. I counted down until I was 14 and 9 months so I could apply for that job. And then I was down there working 6 nights a week, going to school. Like I was just obsessed, I think, with like the independence of earning my own money. And very quickly after Macca's, like I went on to the next job and the next job. And from the ages of 14 to 21, I had over 20 jobs.
No way.
Yeah, because I would just get a job and then if I knew straight away, if I didn't like it, I'd be like, oh, I'm applying for something else. And it was never anything in particular that I didn't like about the job. It was just like, as soon as I knew that I didn't like it and it wasn't making me happy, I'm going to go try something else. And I remember the last jobs that I wound up in, and I did the most random shit. I did like fast food, working in restaurants, working in bars. I was a barista. I did sales, retail. Like I tried everything. The most random job that I ever had. You probably wouldn't know it, but it was at Aussie Bush Camp.
What's that? Judging from your huge smile, I want to know.
It's like north of Newcastle, and it's like, you know, your school camp that you go to when you're in year 5 and 6 and you do like rock climbing and abseiling and all that. So I was a sports instructor there.
Good.
So that was like the most random job that I ever had. But the last couple of jobs that I had was your traditional 9 to 5, Monday to Friday admin roles. And I thought, surely I've tried everything. Once I try the 9 to 5 dream life, like that's going to make me happy. And again, like I got the 9 to 5 role and I thought this still isn't it. And you know how like most people know the feeling of waking up in the morning and being like, oh, I don't want to go to work today. Like just that dread of your alarm going off in the morning. And I would drive to work and I would be almost in tears because I couldn't believe that this is my life. And I know most people feel that way, like, oh, fuck, again. Like, and then on Sunday, you've got that dread of the week ahead. And I know that's normal for a lot of people, but I don't know what it was, but my feeling was way worse. Like, I don't know what it was, but I was just like, fuck this. I don't want to live like this. And I think I just always had that thought in my head and I wasn't going to stop until I figured out what it was. I just had no idea what it was. But it led me to, I guess, sitting here with you.
I love that. Hey, it could have been that 9 to 5. We could still be sitting here. So you're starting to allude to it, right? And I'm really curious. You know, one of the things we touched on is this the big wide world of YouTube that you started at an early age. When you said that, I was like, I don't even know if I looked like if I was on YouTube at that stage.
Yeah, it was
know?
so fresh. Like, and this was before we had anything else. I think it was just. I think we still had MySpace at that point, or maybe it was like fizzling out. And then Facebook was the other app, but all the parents had that. Like, remember when it was just for like your mum or whatever? And then, I discovered YouTube and it was in high school and there was just, I don't even think there was really any Australian like prominent creators on there. But I remember watching, you know, a few US YouTubers doing like beauty guru makeup tutorials or whatever. And I just thought, I really liked that. And I guess my first time that I'd ever done anything on camera was when we were kids. We had a next door neighbour that had the like desktop computer with the massive thing down the bottom on the ground that you put your toe in to turn on. Do you remember that? I'm going to turn the computer on, put my big toe in the thing and press it on.
I thought that was only me.
No, that's all of us. And they had the little webcam on top of it, you know, with like the ball webcam.
Yeah.
And I'd go over to my neighbour's house and this is when I'm like 6 or 7.
Public service announcement. Chew the Fat is part of my mission to raise $1 million for Eat With Purpose cookbook. You can buy it at eatwithpurpose.net. Now, the other day I got a comment. The guy was like, too many ads. I just want to hear the podcast. Don't be like that. Come on, man. It's for the kids.
And my neighbours and I, because they had all kids the same age as us, we would like go on Windows Movie Maker and just like dance around and be silly. And like that was the first time that I discovered I like being on camera. So then once I saw this YouTube thing, I was like, this is perfect, you know, and I had like a laptop at the time and I would just set it up on the edge of my bed and like sit against the wall and just make videos. And that's how it all started.
That's so good. Can I share you the most random story that's just come to my mind?
Yeah.
Mostly because I want to embarrass myself to my audience. As you shared that, I'm like thinking these weird little parallels. And obviously MySpace, we're all on it, so that's not a weird parallel.
I'm sad that MySpace is gone. Like, I wish I'd saved all my photos from there.
I want to customize my wall.
Yeah, we were coding back in the day, like graphics, a song.
A top 50 friends, just so you don't have friends.
I know, and then you'd get the top 3 and then people get pissed off at you. Bring it back, honestly.
So there was a phase there. I reckon I must have been, I want to say 15 or 16. And something similar to Movie Maker, we discovered that you could make music. And me and my friends made rap songs.
Nice.
And there's like, we'll obviously use that in the trailer, Kai. There's like, there's little fucking Australian little kids rapping on the things. Beautiful.
Love it.
Terrible time. Luckily, that didn't turn out to be my career, Brittney. So
nice.
I'm glad I didn't pass that through. So at what point did this start to like snowball for you, the YouTube thing?
So I did it. I started one YouTube channel in high school, which was called Saunders X. Don't know why.
Sounds saucy.
That's just my last name with a little X on the end. I don't know why. And then I made like my second channel as well. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was like vlogging on one and doing something comedy on the other or whatever. And so it was the second channel that was the one that took off eventually. So it really was just a hobby, you know, all throughout high school. Just did it for fun. Wasn't posting consistently or anything. And then I dropped out of high school before I finished and was just working all those billion different jobs and just doing that, I guess, more consistently. And so by the time I was 21 working in one of those admin roles, I had 80,000 subscribers and obviously Instagram had come out throughout those years as well. So I was saying, make sure you like and subscribe and follow me on Instagram, this cool new app. So I'd slowly built the Instagram as well. So I think when I was 21, I had 80,000 YouTube subscribers. I was making a bit of money off the AdSense because I'd signed up to that. And then I had maybe 20,000 followers on Instagram. And that's when brands started to, I guess, discover influencers. But the word influencer didn't even exist then. Like, I don't know, they just called us YouTubers.
Yeah.
And what's funny is when all that started to happen, like the rise of brands discovering content creators in Australia, it wasn't like there was no such thing as like a small business on social media back then. Like, you know how it's just like small business everything now?
Yeah.
It was the big dogs that discovered us creators. So like my first paid campaign was with Colgate.
Oh, no way.
You know, and I got 80,000 YouTube subscribers and they said, can you please do 2 YouTube videos, like a 30-day testimonial on our brand new Optic White toothpaste. I still use that toothpaste to this day. Like they've gotten a 10-year customer out of me.
Geniuses.
Yeah. So it was around, the age of 21. It was around the age of 21 that I got to that 80,000 mark, and that's when I quit my full-time job. And I thought, what's the worst that's going to happen? If it doesn't work out, I'll just get another job, like, because I was just used to doing that anyway. And it was then, so 10 years ago now, that I just thought, I'm going to put my all into this. And then I just became so strict on my upload schedule. And this was a different time, you know. I'd be like, new video every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 p.m., you know. And it was from there that it really... I wouldn't say it happened overnight though. It took me like 3 years then to get from 80,000 to 1 million subscribers, and I hit 1 million subscribers on my birthday.
No way.
How cool is that? I don't remember how old I was, maybe 24. Yeah, my 24th birthday I hit 1 million. So I'd say it was around then that it really skyrocketed when I decided to quit my full-time job and go, fuck it, I'm going to make this thing work. And then that's when we just saw the internet change. And so it was really cool for me to be there to see just the rise of that whole thing, like the word influencer and brands, and then all these online brands are popping up. But yeah, that's kind of when it happened for me.
That's incredible. So I'm really interested, right? So I've had a number of different conversations over the last couple of years, which now everybody seems we call each other creators.
Yeah.
It's a new word. Maybe influencer. People are like,
I know that word's got such a to it, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like if you are influencing people online, I guess you can call yourself an influencer, but I don't like the word either.
And there's like this interesting theme that I keep seeing arise when I speak to different people. And I'm just really curious to get your take. most recently was someone which was like, I could kind of tell in their eyes the battle between, you know, getting to where they wanted to get to from the social media perspective, but the dangers that it brought along with the negativity. And ultimately, I think that person probably wasn't that happy with what it, like, the way things were shaping up.
Okay.
And so the question I have for you is, like, did you ever have to wrestle with any of the negativity, or I guess a bit of the roller coaster? What was your experience as you started to climb up those ranks?
Yeah. I mean, the internet was so different back then, when it was all about like the YouTuber. It was a different era. I definitely copped my fair share of negativity, like being, you know, in my late teens and early 20s and showing my life online, like people just being...
Like, what are you doing? Because it would be so confusing.
Yeah. And also, I guess, just, I don't know, being a woman and putting myself out there and people being super critical of the way that you look or your body or whatever. Like, I definitely got a lot of those comments back in those days. But I'd say overall, like, my experience has been pretty positive, especially like back then. But I also think a lot of it has come down to the way that I think that I've just been myself the whole time that I've been online. I've never tried to like pretend to be anyone else, or that I have some sort of lifestyle and I'm trying to like show off or whatever. And I think that's where I've been really lucky with my audience, is people have just been able to resonate with me, even though I've been online for over 10 years and I've had a lot of different phases in the 10 years. I think like the key to my success has been just being authentically myself. And I always just say, like, I'm just Brittney from Newcastle. Like, and I've always, no matter how much I've achieved, like, I'm still just me from Newey. And I think that has played a huge part in, I guess, me having a pretty positive experience on social media. Like, of course, I've gotten my fair share of like nasty comments, but especially back in the day, but it's water off a duck's back, honestly. Yeah.
And I think what's really important there is the call out is around the intention that you go into it with.
Yes.
You know, I've had recently people like, oh, you know, why don't you show this part of your lifestyle or that? And it's like, well, I know the intention of doing that, you know, showing a fancy car, that's not in my nature. So therefore the intention I'm doing it is to get the clout.
Yeah.
And then when you do that, then if the backlash comes, you like kind of feel like, oh, but that wasn't me. And now like you're kind of wrestling with that.
I think that's where I guess it's been lucky for me, because my whole online career has been a natural progression. I started before the internet was the way that it is now, just because I thought these videos will be fun. Yeah. So, you know, I haven't started, you know, in more recent years where everyone wants to be an influencer. You know, like I was an influencer before it was an influencer. Before there was such thing as an influencer. So it's just been like a natural journey for me. So I've never really set out to show anything other than myself or portray my life in a certain way, because I just rode the wave of social media as we saw it rise in Australia.
Love that. So this is a business podcast and I'm sickly obsessed with business. So I'd love to know, like, what pushed you to start Fate? Yeah,
great question. Before Fate, I had attempted a lot of other businesses, which I think is always really important for people to remember. I think we see business owners online today and we're like, wow, like look at everything that they're doing. But people would be surprised to know that most successful entrepreneurs have tried a lot of other things prior, and that's absolutely the way it is and was for me. So from a young age, like obviously starting those YouTube videos, I guess, was me being an entrepreneur in a way, just giving it a go. And I tried a lot of other things. I had a spray tanning business. I taught myself how to do makeup, and I was doing freelance makeup in Newcastle. And I've got photos of this. They're so embarrassing. I'll have to send them to you. I thought that I could decorate iPhone cases and sell them. So I started this iPhone decorating business and posted on Facebook, like, buy my iPhone case. I'd like stuck lace and pearls on them. I had another e-commerce business before Fate as well, where I was selling body scrubs. So I tried a lot of things. And so when it came to Fate, and because I just loved doing them, like they felt like little hobbies to me. And I guess I didn't ever really understand that I was actually attempting to be a business owner.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, buy my decorated iPhone cases that I made last night on the dining room table, you know? So when it come to Fate, it genuinely wasn't a grand idea. It wasn't, I didn't have a business plan. Like I was 23, 24. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd tried a billion other things and tried a billion jobs as well. And I guess by this point I was obviously a little bit older and I'd worked with a lot of brands online in my early 20s, like doing your sponsored, try on haul and everything. And so I thought, I'm just going to give another business a go. And I guess the one difference was I was a little bit older and I had a massive audience. But again, like I started Fate in the garage underneath my house. We had a double garage, and my partner AJ, him and I had only been like going out for not very long by this point, but he'd moved in with me. But he like moved in and never went home. Like that's how our relationship started. Like
it was like a weekender trip.
Yes, like I took him home one day and he just never went home, and he's still there. It's so awkward now. And so I said to him, look, you're going to have to move your car out onto the street because that side is where I'm going to set up this little business. And he must have been thinking, what the fuck is this girl doing? And so I set everything up, and I've got photos of the setup. Like we went to Bunnings and I was like, how many plastic tubs should we get? And we bought like 12. And I just figured it all out on my own in that garage, and from my spare room. I was Googling, how to ship parcels in Australia. What do I need? Learn how to build a Shopify store, set it all up myself, hired my first employee to come work with me in the garage, which on reflection, like it was, AJ's mum's friend's daughter, like who wanted a casual job. And I just always think how random of her to be like, Mum, I got a new job. And his mum's like, congrats, where? Oh, at this girl's house, like working in the shed under her house. Like her mum must have been like, what the fuck is happening?
So good.
And so, yeah, I had one girl come and start with me, and AJ was an electrician at the time, like working in his dad's family business. And so I'd be packing the orders in the garage, and he'd finish at 2 and come home and help us as well. And that was all I ever saw at that moment in my life. Like I was never a forward planner. I was young, like I didn't know what I was doing. And a few months in, when we actually kind of got busy, and then I thought to myself, oh, this is actually like turning into something. Like we're going to have to get our first warehouse. And so we moved out of the garage, got the first 90 square meter warehouse. And that's when I was like, oh, this is actually turning into a real business. It's not just like something that I'm doing on the side for fun. But yeah, Fate was never in my plans to be what it is today at all. And I'll like proudly say that, I'm not someone that's going to be like, yeah, I always had this dream of, being this huge fashion brand, doing all these amazing sizes and all this cool stuff. It was just like me in my garage thinking, yeah, I'll give this a go.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's such a good and important message for people to hear.
Yeah.
Because I think part of that, the reason that a lot of people don't take the leap is sometimes they overthink about all those steps. And it's like, well, if I do this, then this might happen. And then the failure will happen. And what will people think? And you're like, because you're so many steps ahead, you then don't take the first most important one, which is like, just give something a go.
Yes.
And the attitude you spoke about right early in the beginning, which was like, well, if YouTube doesn't work out and I don't have my job,
I'll just go get another one. Yeah.
It's literally the perfect baseline for so many people. Now, obviously, things are contextually different depending on what part of the journey you're in life.
Yeah.
But for most people, that is available to them. And it's such a good way to like, how do you eat an elephant? Just one bite at a time. Just like one next step, next step.
People always, maybe not so much now, but, in the first few years of Fate, people would say, how did you work out how to do all this? I said, I Google shit every day. Like I Google even now, like if I don't know how to do something, I'll just look it up or ask ChatGPT. Yeah. Like it's the only way that you can do it. And you're so right. People can get really overwhelmed, at the thought of starting a business. And I think especially now with how many people are in business and e-commerce is booming, they can look at people who are set up already and compare themselves, but they don't see like the beginning of our businesses and how wrong we were doing everything. Do you want to know a funny story?
I would love to.
Okay. When I first started Fate, I obviously knew nothing about how to do anything. I was just figuring it out as I would go. And the way that we would pack our orders is we'd print out like the packing slip one by one. And then I didn't know about label printers. So I would print out the shipping label on an A4 piece of paper, but, it just prints in the top corner. And it was perfect because it was in the top corner. So then we would get scissors and cut like 1, 2. So then you've got your little packing slip, your little shipping label, And then we would sit it on the bag and then have a tape dispenser and 4 pieces of sticky tape around the edge of the paper shipping label. And that's how we did it for a really long time.
How long?
Like a year and a half.
I love that
maybe.
so much.
And it was just like you cut, and then your 4 pieces, and we'd line them all up along the edge of the table so you had them quickly there. And then I worked out like so far down the track, I could get like a Dymo label printer and actually print them on a piece of sticky adhesive already. And that's what business is. And I've spoken about that like on my own podcast and on social media, and people, DM me, go, oh my God, I'm still doing it this way. And I'm like, that's all right. Like we all start there and you just figure it out as you go. I genuinely think business is doing everything wrong until you learn how to do it right. Even today we do something and I'm like, actually, we kind of fucked that up. If this ever happens again, we're going to do it this way instead. Like that's what business is.
100%.
No one knows what they're doing. We're all just figuring it out.
That is one of the most important lessons. People often ask me, it's like, you've met all these people through the podcast. You've had these, people ranging from a billionaire and everywhere in between. What's the most common theme? It's literally people are just figuring it out, because it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. The reality is if you're growing to new heights, it's something you've not done before.
Yep.
And therefore, you're figuring it out.
Exactly.
And it's just these stepping stones. Can I share a story too, Brittney?
Yeah.
just so we can have a little laugh together. So my version of the packing slip label is we used to do these things called a direct letter. We were a real estate printing business when we first started.
Yeah.
So we weren't a tech company, we were a real estate printing business. And so I won this client who was like, okay, we want, I think it was 8,000 direct letters a week, and we want them folded. Now, I hadn't had them sign a contract, and so in order to get a folding machine, it was going to cost $35,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely, of course we can do that. And so we win their business. And so once a week, the 3 brothers in a hot factory would sit there and we'd fold 8,000 letters in half and pack them into a box and then deliver it. It would be like 6 hours of work folding
Just folding a piece of paper in half.
Folding a little piece of paper
What, you
in
never
half.
got the machine?
We never got the machine for a long time.
Wow. Why? Because it was too big of an investment?
It was too big of an investment. And we're like so tight with every single dollar. And we're like, no, it's fine. We just fold it. It's only it takes 6 hours. So I know the feel.
Yeah.
So, we've touched on a couple of those, I guess, earlier ventures. I'd love to know, were there any key lessons you had from those air quotes failures that you were able to pull through to Fate?
Not really, because I don't think that I ever saw anything else that I tried as a failure. Like I look back at all the things that I did and it's cringeworthy, but I don't see any of them as being, a failure. I just thought they were cool, fun hobbies that I was like giving a whirl, So I don't think there was necessarily anything that I took from them in terms of a fail. I would say, if anything, what I've taken the most, which has helped me with Fate, is probably building the YouTube channel and learning organic social media. And that really set me up for success with Fate, because, I didn't know how to build a business, run a business, scale a business, but I knew how to make organic content. And I think that's been one of the biggest advantages for me, because our content is just on fire.
Yes.
And people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, it's because I fucking made these YouTube videos for like 10 years. Like that's where I learned it. So I'd say that's a good thing that I took out of something for Fate.
So let's go there, right? Because I'm really curious, right? Because this is one of the most important topics today, which is around organic socials and how much it's outperforming.
Yes.
And what I'm seeing a lot of brands do smartly is like they'll be testing things organically. It crushes. Then they take that and then repurpose as an ad, and their cost per click is like greatly diminished.
Yep.
So what can you share to the audience around, because things have changed so much in the last 10 years, but you're still on top of your game. Like, so what can you share about organic socials?
Ooh. I mean, you always hear people talking about personal branding, and I didn't ever know what that meant until I feel like people have been talking about personal branding in recent years more. And I think I've just organically, obviously, made a personal brand, like ever since I started those YouTube videos in high school. I just think it's really important with organic content and personal branding that, especially if you're like a product-based business, you have to do organic and personal content, because I think consumers don't want to be sold something anymore. When I think back to even when I started Fate, you could just post a picture of a dress and people would buy it. Like, because the internet just wasn't the same as it is now. Whereas now, to sell a dress, you've got to give people a million other reasons for them to want it other than the fact that it's a nice dress.
Yeah.
And, you think back to Instagram even like 6 years ago, brands' feeds were just full of their products. Like, that's all they would post. Whereas now I think that doesn't work, because no one's going on their Instagram or TikTok wanting to be sold something. So I feel, especially, in 2024 and 2025, you've got to be so clever. Like, you quite ultimately just have to entertain your customer by making them laugh or teaching them something or telling a really engaging story or taking them on a journey, and then they'll buy the dress. Like, that's what it's all about. And I think that's the only way forward, which sucks for a lot of businesses, because not every business owner wants to be a content creator. Not every business owner wants to have a personal brand. But I feel like that's the way that the world is moving forward, because without my personal brand and without my love of content creation, I have no idea how I would sell clothes, because that's how I sell my clothes, weirdly.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It is a really big one, right? Because a lot of people, I get a lot of message people like wrestling with this.
Yeah.
All my content that I do is I'm at a very different scale to you, Brittney, but the content I do is all around business and education.
Yes.
So in whatever form that looks like, sometimes a bit of joke, sometimes not. And it requires probably a lot more effort than I once thought it would.
Yes,
and
it's so much effort.
Like lots of time.
Yeah, it's all your effort and all your time.
Yeah, but once you start to get momentum, and then you start to see, oh, okay, this is actually the highest leverage time I could possibly do. One piece of content can do, recently I kind of bit the bullet and I was like, oh, fuck it. Okay, I know what TikTok wants. It doesn't want a curated video. It wants me talking like this, looking like a goose.
Yeah.
Did that 6 minutes later. Oh, okay, now it's been seen by 35,000 people. I get a message from a guy who sold a company for a couple of $1 billion. I've never met him in my life in New York.
Wow.
Love the TikTok, know the feel. And I was like,
yeah, it's crazy.
You realize when you get there, okay, the leverage that it creates.
Yes.
But so many people are like, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to be front facing.
That's a hard thing. And I guess then the only piece of advice to that is you're going to have to hire someone that wants to do that for you. But then that's also difficult if that business owner isn't at the point of hiring someone yet. And, do you want your first hire to be a content creator? Because my advice always is like your first hire needs to be an all-rounder that's going to come in and like help you do every single little task that you're doing. But yeah, I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for that content part of our business. And I don't know how any other business would grow if they're not doing organic socials, because that's just where it's at.
Do you have a team around it now?
For our socials?
Yeah.
So we've got like a team for the Fate social media.
And how do you structure that?
Good question. There's two of them.
Yeah.
And one is a coordinator and one's the assistant.
Yeah.
And so they kind of just know both of their roles individually. And their main focus is because we shoot a lot with models and everything, because we're obviously doing fashion. So they're more focused on like all of our shoots, which we're usually doing every second week. And then we have another girl who's doing more of our PR. So working with creators that are creating content for us at home, UGC creators, all that kind of stuff. And then I've got April, who's just in the room right now.
Shout out to April.
And so April works directly with me on all my content that we're kind of creating more for like my personal accounts, as well as like any content that I want to create that's going to sit on Fate.
Love it.
Yeah.
I guess I've been keeping the audience on the edge of their toes, and they're probably like, well, where's Fate today? What's the scale? Like, is there anything you feel comfortable sharing there in terms of size, units sold, whatever feels comfortable to you?
Oh, yeah. I don't know off the top of my head, but we're an 8-figure company.
Yeah.
And growing rapidly every single year.
Well done.
Yeah,
Solid.
I never thought that it would be anything what it is today, and it's just crazy to think. I don't know how many units we sell. So my partner AJ works in the business and he's the numbers guy. So he's the one that would be all over that and be able to answer it. We just did, was it April, did we do 1 or 2 million in the sale? Yeah, I think we did a $2 million like sale.
Nice.
Yeah.
Solid.
I'm not really one that's like focused on the numbers. But I think, it might have been $2 million in Black Friday that we just did. And that was like our biggest sale that we'd ever done.
Which is just wild.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild. That's so
nuts. It's crazy. And I remember, back when I was working in my last full-time job when I was 21, so 10 years ago. And I think back then I was taking home like $550 a week. And my dream back then was to earn $1,000 a week. 52 grand a year. Like that, I was like, oh my God, how good would that be? And then we're sitting here watching the Shopify go to, $2 million in one day. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like AJ and I just look at each other and piss ourselves laughing because we're like, what is actually going on? But yeah, like I never could have imagined that we'd be at the size that we're at now. It's absolutely insane. And even when like journalists write articles about us and they're like young Aussie millionaire. Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like it just doesn't feel real.
I'm just Brittney from Newcastle.
That's literally it. Like, and one of my friends, Anita, I don't know if you know her, she owns Hero Packaging.
Oh, I've been seeing her name around.
You have to get her on. She's amazing.
Love
Shout out Anita. Like she's like, you need to like act more like what you're doing. Cause I'm just like, oh, like I'm just me from Newcastle, but she's like, but look at what you're freaking doing. But yeah.
No, I love it. Stay this way, Brittney.
Yeah,
never change. It's so good. It's the best. This is the cool thing, right? Like the higher you climb, the bigger the business gets, and the more you remain that person, the more attraction to people around you becomes.
Absolutely.
There's nothing worse than the people who act too much that way.
I know.
And it's just like ugh.
I can kind of I see it from two different perspectives now because obviously I grew up in the influencer era and we saw like all the first, I guess, generation of influencers come to be in Australia, and I witnessed everyone around me. We were earning like hundreds of thousands of dollars in the influencer days. And I was like, 22 earning 300 grand a year, like, and I saw all these other influencers around me starting to get like the Range Rovers and we saw the rise of like the Gucci bags and the designer clothes. And I, for some reason, never got into that. I guess I just never found it interesting, but I could see how you would want to. And then same for business owners. Obviously, I've experienced every end of the spectrum of money, I guess, where, when I quit my job at 21 to pursue the YouTube, like my bank account was always at zero. Like, and then I would get to save like $1,000 and then car rego would come out and I'd be like, fuck, and they have to start again. And now to be in the position that I'm in financially, like it's crazy. And you do see business owners that kind of get a lot of success and then they start splashing their cash on everything. And I see it from both perspectives. I see how unrelatable that is to audiences, and you see people say, oh, look at them now, like flaunting all their wealth and whatever. But at the same time, I, in a way, understand, because if you're working so hard and doing so well, you obviously want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I think because I've been online for so long, it definitely has made me more mindful of actually what I spend my money on and what I do show on social media. So I can see it from both ways. But I know for sure, like if tomorrow I was all of a sudden, starting to act a different way or show my lifestyle in a different way, like people would be like, what happened to you?
Yeah.
This isn't you, or you've changed kind of thing.
I thought you were Brittney from Newey.
Yeah.
We're here now, and I think where you want to get to, I'm sure, is very different.
Yeah.
And you talk about earlier, you said, you never imagined being here, but have you now started to kind of think about what are those big tranches in your future and where you'd like to get to?
I've had a lot of people ask me that. And again, like I'm just Brittney from Newey. Like we're very much in like a bubble in Newcastle. Like it's very chill. I mean, it's kind of like where we are today. It's just like a chill beach town. But then, coming down to Sydney and meeting other entrepreneurs and business owners, like I've had a lot of people say things to me over the last couple of years, what's your exit strategy? And I'm like, what the fuck is an exit strategy? I'm just getting started. Nah, you should have an exit strategy. When are you going to sell this thing? I'm like, what do you mean? When am I going to sell this thing? Like, I thought I was going to see it out until the end. But I've definitely had a lot of people ask me questions that's got me thinking about the future. But again, I think it all comes back to the fact that I never thought that I would be where I am now. So it's weird to think where it could go from here. And also, what does the future look like? And I think about this all the time. Like, it's pretty impossible to have a business for your entire life. So you're going to ride it out until it's death, or are you going to exit it at the peak? But then I start thinking, when is the peak? Is this it? Or is it in 5 years? Or what if it's in 10? But what if I leave before? Like, I think these things all the time. But in terms of goals, it's hard for me to have goals because everything that's happened, especially in the last, I want to say 2 to 3 years, like I think that's when we've experienced our biggest amount of growth. I never could have imagined it. So I can't even imagine what else we can achieve. You know, we've gone and rolled out 5 stores organically. I've never taken out a loan. I've never had any investors. Like, it's all done just with the money that I've got sitting in the business. I'm really proud of that, that we're in no debt. Which is really cool.
It's huge.
Yeah, that's something I'm really proud of.
Huge.
Like, we've never been in debt, which I'm so proud of. But I honestly, we've got some plans of things that we're working on, but they're not like grand extreme plans. And again, like, I talk to fellow business owners and like, when are you going to do your US expansion? And I'm like, how the fuck do I do that? Like, I'm just a girl. I'm trying to figure this out as I go. So I don't have any huge plans. Like, at the moment, I'm working on my personal brand a lot.
Why?
Good question. So I feel like even up until now, I am very much still working in the business instead of on it. And I know that's a thing that we always talk about, but I'm very involved in my business, from the warehouse to the retail stores and everyone in between kind of thing. But I have built the team to a good point now where we've got like strong management, and I have been able to step back a little bit, but I do suffer with extreme guilt when it comes to that, especially when it started so small with just me and 2 girls, like, you know, and then it's grown and grown and grown and grown, and all of a sudden I'm not there as much anymore.
How many team members are there?
We've got 70.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So it's gone from like just me working with one girl in my garage to 3 at the little warehouse, and then it's grown and grown and grown. But I think it just gets to a point where I can't be worrying about who said what to someone else and they're upset. You know?
I do know.
But my biggest problem is because I'm so invested and involved in Fate that I want to be there to help with the tiniest staff problem. And that's like a problem that I struggle with, is that I can't step away because I want to help. If I hear that something's going on with someone in whatever area of the business, like, I'll go and help and figure out and do a one-on-one. Like, I'm still very much in that part of the business, but I'm trying to step away because I know that my time is so much better spent on growing the business rather than worrying about like the day-to-day operations. I do all the buying for Fate.
That's wild.
Yeah, I do all the buying. I've got one other girl who does it with me, and I'm sure eventually she'll kind of like take it off me fully. But my fingers are like in everything. And when we've opened all of our stores, like, that's me doing everything, like meeting with the landlords and the real estate agents or the Westfields and doing everything with the architect and the builders. I'm very involved, but I think the next step for me is stepping back as much as I can so that I can focus on my personal brand. And I've been creating a lot more business style content lately. And obviously I've got my podcast as well. I think that's the next step for me, but it's so hard when I want to be so invested in the day-to-day of Fate. But I just know that I can achieve a whole lot more if I kind of step away and trust everyone to kind of do their roles and focus more on, you know, doing more keynotes and more business content. I think that's the angle that I'm going for. And as for Fate, I don't know. I feel like we're still just getting started with Fate, honestly.
I love that. And is it from a sense of control that you're unable to step back from the business? What's the thing holding you back?
I think my fear is that if I step too far away, it'll all crumble. I think that can happen in businesses, especially when the founder has been the one that's kind of built it to where it is. And then as soon as they step away, like the cracks slowly start to form. And we've got a solid, amazing team. But I don't know, I think I just have a fear that like it'll crumble or it'll lose its something, you know. I don't know what it is. I think it's also just like a fear of guilt. Like one thing that I really struggle with, which is a very just me problem, is I feel like if I don't go into the office for the day, everyone will go, where is she? Like even though they would probably never think that in a million years. I have had actually someone that worked for us a few years ago, without throwing them under the bus, but like it came back to me that she was complaining that I'm not in store enough. You know, and I'm like, fucking sorry. Like she's never here. It's like, because I'm fucking building the business. You expect me to just be in the shop every day serving the customers? But I do have that fear because you hear so many people say like, oh, my boss is never here kind of thing. Like not at Fate, but you hear like people that you know, like my boss is never here. They don't care. And I think I have a fear that I don't ever want to become that boss. But also, like if I'm in the office every day, like working closely with everyone on their roles, like how is the business going to continue growing? Because I think I need to grow my personal brand for Fate to keep growing.
This is a really interesting balancing act, right? And I think it's always good for people to hear the founders' worries and concerns. And the reality is we're all human, right? The starting position, we're all human. So you have all these feelings. So a lot of these different things you've touched on, I'm like, resonate with that. So like the idea of like, I'm leaving early, so I better create like a really good elaborate excuse as to why I can leave early. Even though you're paying for the salaries. But
you just feel terrible. Yeah. Like if you're going to go leave early to go get your nails painted, like I would never want to tell everyone that's what I'm doing because
I'm closing a huge deal. Like,
I'm worried that they're going to be like, well, why are you going to get your nails done? Even though they never would, or maybe they would. I don't know. I can't control the way people think. But like, I think it's something that a lot of owners can relate to. And I remember when I was talking to Raquel from Who is Elijah, who shout out,
big fan.
She was saying how she stepped down from CEO because she couldn't deal with like the staff side of the job anymore. And now she's just creative. I don't know what her role is now.
Yeah. So she's like full head-to-head creative. She's doing an awesome job and like doing the deals and the activations and stuff. The stories are amazing.
And when she said that, I was like, oh my God, like maybe that's the way that I'm going to go in the future. But it's just hard to ever envision stepping away from being so involved when you've been there from day one, like cutting out the things and sticky taping them on, you know?
That's the stuff, right? Because what happens with the founder is you have that context from the ground up. And so often part of it is there's a lot of stuff that's almost like not band-aided, but kind of band-aided. And through your like knowledge, you can keep everything, all the wheels spinning.
Yes.
I had to learn that definitely. And there was definitely, you know, so we went from a team of 45 to a team of 400 overnight through a merger.
Oh my goodness.
So I had to like really quickly learn, like in those early years, 45 is like you can still have the fingers everywhere.
Yes.
And then at 400 is like, oh no, I cannot.
That's wild.
And you have to really quickly change to, okay, what is it that my time is best leveraged?
Yes.
To the point where you're starting to wrestle with this, and that the realization is like me putting out these little fires, what feels like I'm doing a service, I'm actually doing a disservice to the greater good of the organization.
Yeah.
And so live feedback for you.
Yeah.
It's a wrestle to do it, but it'll be the best decision you ever make.
Yeah.
And so what I encourage always to look for is two things. So number one is, do you have an advisory board?
No, but I saw your video about this the other day.
Yeah. So this is something I do for a number of founders at that kind of similar stage to you, where they're at that place that they're like, I've been kind of making it up as they go.
Yeah.
And you have all the deep context. But it's now a great time to have third parties look in. Yeah. And when I say third parties, I just mean like different skill sets.
Yeah.
So if you think about like what does it take to go from, you have 5 stores, if there's ambitions to get to 20, there's certain different skill sets that are required. And even having a sounding board.
Yeah.
So the challenge and the thing I talked about in the video is when people hear the word board, their eyes roll over because like, oh, it sounds so fucking boring.
Old men that are in suits.
Yeah, pale, male and stale. And they're all sitting around a table just being boring as.
Pale, male and stale.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
There's my first chairman of my board says, good to see this board isn't pale, male and stale.
I like it.
And so by having these different disciplines of, it might be 3, might be 4 different people, having fresh eyes look in, like the perspective that it gives, sometimes if you say to yourself, what is the advice I'd give myself? You come up with things you never even thought of.
Yes.
Because when you're giving someone advice, you're thinking about it from a different lens. So that's that first part, is having like some kind of advisory board where you can learn from people's networks, learn from what they do, and shorten down the time horizon.
Yeah.
But the second thing is like taking that leap to get that next kind of, I don't know if we want to use the word exec, but like a person who's like elite in their specific field. So I would call you from the outside in, knowing you for 47 minutes, like elite in the field of marketing, because you're doing a great job and have been in the game of content for so long.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that next field that you could bring in that person that would alleviate the need for you to do that specific role? And so it might be, I don't know if you have, but like a COO, like a chief operations officer who can take that big brunt of that away from you. Because you are right. Like by moving into that space, and if you like continually grow your brand,
yes,
like the impact could be doubled 3-4 times.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful part of the journey of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
You know, you said like to have the same business for your whole life, it's a bit like that's scary.
Yeah.
But how there's certain people I can see from the outside in, they can go through those different waves and times is because the business is fundamentally not the same. And so it almost feels like a different journey each time, because these are different tranches of, like in those early days, I was sticky taping, now I'm here. And the next phase, and it almost feels kind of these fresh evolutions.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't feel the same and stale.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was just a riffing with you.
Love it. No, I love it. I definitely do think like that is going to be the next phase for me. It's just a matter of doing it. And because people talk about, you know, what's your exit strategy or what would be your buyout price? But I think I could never sell Fate, because the way that we do some things still, people would come in and be like, what the fuck are they doing here? But we do things in a way that works for us.
Yeah.
But if some person come in and took over Fate, they'd be like, what the hell is she doing? Why is she doing her buying like this? But it's just all part of it.
I love it. So one last question to wrap up the business piece. What's the biggest lesson for an audience member who's listening who hasn't yet made the leap? What was the lesson you teach them about business?
They haven't made the leap to start yet.
To start something.
I would say make sure whatever it is that you're wanting to do is something that you can genuinely see yourself doing. I think social media can make business look amazing, but it's actually fucked. If I'm being honest. And any business owners will tell you that. Like, we post all these cool, fun videos and dancing in the warehouse and doing all the fun stuff and opening a new store and doing a cool activation. But like, business is the hardest thing that you'll ever do. Like, physically, mentally, emotionally, business will make you look at yourself in a way that you never have before. And I think that's one thing that I've gotten out of business, is it's made me reflect on who I am, the way people will perceive me. You know, if you be someone's boss, it'll make you look at yourself like you haven't before, because you're wondering, how does this person perceive me? But my advice would be, whatever it is that you're thinking of diving into, like, sit on it and think, is this definitely what I want to do? Because when I started Fate, yeah, of course I loved fashion, but I didn't think, hang on a second, is this what I really want to do? I was just lucky that it just so happened I was good at running an e-commerce business, and it turns out I'm really good at it. But I guess I'm just lucky in the sense where I didn't dive into something and get too far in and realize like this isn't my passion anymore, which I know a lot of owners do. Like, they start something and then they lose their passion for it. And then they're like, what do I do now? Like, I'm 4 years in or whatever. So I'd say, be mindful with what you're stepping into. Say, is this something I really see myself doing? And am I willing to put in the hard yards? Am I willing to cut the paper and put the sticky tape on? Like, am I willing to go through all of that shit? Because you have to go through so much to get to the good spot. And I would also say, be ready to like never feel like you've done anything. That's another thing too, because, you know, my friends will say like, holy shit, Britt, do you ever like sit back and look at everything that you've done? I'm like, oh, sometimes, because you just get so caught up in like the rat race, the day to day, this, that, and the other, that you never actually stop and feel like you've accomplished anything, because there's 10 more things already on your to-do list for next week. So yeah, I think if you are going into business to kind of look for like a self-satisfaction or a, like you've accomplished something, like I'd say for a lot of owners, it's hard to ever feel that way, because there's always so much more that you can do. Like, it's never ending.
Never ending.
It's never ending. And people are like, why don't you do this next and that? I'm like, fuck, let me just add it to the list, you know, because it's just never ending. But that would be my advice. Be smart with what you're stepping into. Make sure it's something that you're truly passionate about if you're wanting to be super hands-on with it. and just be ready for a roller coaster, I would say.
2 more questions for you, Brittney. Who have you become through this journey?
Ooh. Who have I become? I would say, I know it's really cliche, but thinking back to me, like doing dancing back in the day and being on the stage and loving it, like I would say I've become who she wanted me to be. Like I would say my younger self would definitely be proud of what I'm doing now. I even like used to do the talent quests at primary school. Remember those? Like a talent quest and like dancing for the whole school. How embarrassing. But I've become, I guess, who she wanted to be, which is what I'm really proud of. Was that the question? Like, who have you become?
Yeah, I mean, you've almost also asked my last question, which I was going to say that young girl who wanted to achieve greatness. Have you done it? But there you go.
Yeah, I would say definitely. And I just always knew, like from that really young age, like I wanted to do something great. I don't think I even thought in my head back then, I want to do something great. It was more like a feeling. Like I just knew, I don't know, I'm not really spiritual or anything, but like I just knew, you know. So I would say, yeah, that's who I've become. Someone that my younger self would absolutely be proud of, and I did it all on my own. So that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of.
Beautiful. Brittney, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's been great to be here. I'll be back tomorrow.